This video was originally just going to be about Siege's Latin American region, but there's been some discussion on other regions and formats that circulated over Twitter that I wanted to weigh in on because, like any good Siege Twitter debate, it is full of logical takes and legitimate outrage. Except this time I'm not being ironic, sorry. We need to have a chat about Latin America, the region that houses BR6, Campeonato Mexicano, and Campeonato Sudamericano. Brazil, Mexico, and South America. I think I just nailed that accent. The format for these leagues is slightly different than the NAL, the EUL, and the APAC leagues. Those three reset their standings at the end of every stage, at least where major qualification or relegation is concerned. Stage 1 begins and finishes, then the slate is wiped clean, Stage 2 comes along, same rule set, and that continues for a whole year. You can walk into any stage in these leagues knowing that what you did in a previous stage is not going to follow you into the next one, and you have chances to qualify for a major every single time. What this does is ensure that every stage, every team in those leagues has an equal opportunity to perform better or worse than they did in the previous stage. The LATAM leagues don't do this. They combine every standing cross stage and ensure that teams' wins and losses from earlier in the year carry over into wherever they are in the season. Meaning that if you do good or bad in stage 1 of a season, you could very well be destined to end up there forever. And if you can't see the problem yet, let's talk about the Copa Elite 6. Top 6 teams from Brazil, top 2 from Mexico, top 2 from South America playing in one big tournament at the end of every stage. It's super significant because it determines which 4 Latin American teams go to the next major. Obviously, it's been dominated by Brazilian teams every time, but the problem is that it's the same teams over and over and over. What this means is the same handful of Brazilian teams will keep dominating stage after stage. Your Liquids, your Phases, your Ones, your Furias. I would also mention your NIPs, but they kind of had their era die on them before it could start. More like the NIP error.
Yes, it's a cheap shot, but they still deserve it.
Teams in the bottom echelon of BR6 have slim to almost zero chance to qualify for Copa Elite due to this format. Have 2 sucky stages, but then do really well at the end of a year? Too bad, you still might not qualify. And don't even get me started on the point spread, dude. Like, as of recording this video, you want to know what the difference between first and last place in Brazil is? 55 to 18. Why does W7M even try at that point? And you think that's bad? Mexico and South America still get 2 spots apiece for Copa Elite, and they might as well just be competing with one another. They are leagues above everyone else in both South America and Mexico. Even if they magically had a bad stage, they have a buffer built up from enough good previous performances that they honestly don't have to sweat it that much. This is not an equal opportunity distributor. Let's use a recent example in APAC South. Invictus Gaming placed 6th overall in stage 1 with 8 points, but it meant that they missed the APAC playoffs that stage because they were 2 places below the top 4 and needed to qualify. But in stage 2, they do better. They get 11 points, get into 4th place, qualify for the APAC playoffs, and then eventually the major. If they were to use the same league rule set as Latin America, then they actually didn't qualify for APAC playoffs because through the first 2 stages of APAC South, the top 4 teams were Elevate, Knights, Chiefs, and Q confirmed. This means the whole unlikely scenario of Invictus getting out of a really scrappy APAC South Stage 2, getting through the playoffs by the skin of their teeth, qualifying for the Mexico Major, even being there in the first place, that entire storyline from Mexico straight up doesn't happen. Latin America's system rewards teams that do well consistently, but punishes teams that can't stand up to the same level of competition. You might be thinking to yourself, well, then just get good, you fucker, but that's not possible because Latin America purposefully puts another obstacle in teams' way to do that. Honestly, using combined standings isn't a problem for things like end-of-year regional finals and relegation. EUL finals, like the top 4 teams that end up going, that's going to be interesting because it's the top 4 teams based on an entire year's worth of play. And for relegations, it's a good system too. If we're going to keep on having relegations, I honestly hope that we keep on doing it based upon a whole year's worth of play. North America. But I firmly believe that for each stage, for major qualification purposes, standings should not carry over like this. Now, I'm not going to be the guy who just complains about an issue and doesn't present a solution. Ubisoft already made a lot of big changes at the beginning of this year, like when they were standardizing all of the formats to best of 1 round robins with the same overtime rules. Way easier to understand that way. So if the goal then is uniformity and consistency, then you have to take that next step. If major qualification is done on a stage-by-stage basis for every other league, then Latin America needs to abide by the same rules. It needs to give every team an equal chance to qualify once the new season begins next year. Right now, in this regard, they are the outlier, and there's no reason regions should be competing for the same international event under different formats when most everyone else uses a different system from them. Might as well just make everything the same. And also, as for North America, if we could copy the EUL format of combining standings for all 3 stages, just so that relegations are based upon a whole year rather than just who has the worst performance in stage 3, that'd be killer. Just asking for a friend. I know in this video I'm not doing something like touching on how many spots Brazil has in Copa Elite 6 or the way that Challenger League works in North America or the regional league system in Europe. Like, you really can't have like a perfect way to have everything formatted for an entire esports industry, but there are things that for specific games you are capable of at the very least combining or trying to make the same. And honestly, that's the goal that I have with this video. If Brazil ends up doing that for next year, or sorry, if all Latin America does that for next year, then I've done my job. But if nothing else, I did figure that this was something worth paying attention to or bringing discussion about. So what do you think of this whole situation in Latin America? Do you think it's a big deal? Do you actually prefer the way that it's currently handled down there? I'd love to know what you think in those comments. And yeah, sorry I've been away for so long, but we only have 3 weeks of the NAL left at this point. So make sure you tune in on Wednesdays and you'll see my ugly face there. I'll see you then. Peace.